Hello, and welcome to the Shelly Show. I'm Shailendra, and you're watching this simulcast live on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I hope you're safe and observing the protocols in your area so that we keep each other healthy, safe, and secure. For you to view this episode and other sessions that I run on emerging technologies, professionalism, careers, live, I would request you to follow me so that you can be alerted when a live session is on. This gives you an opportunity to directly ask questions from our guests. So please press the follow button if you are watching this on LinkedIn or Twitter. Press the subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube and smash the bell icon. For maximum reach of this episode, please like and share this video with as many people as possible so that people can learn from our guests as we go forward. And whichever platform you're watching on, just press the like and share button. So that'll be great. Thank you very much. So LinkedIn, with more than 740 million active users just in 2020, LinkedIn expanded from its networking site for professionals to one-to-one kind of a top social media platform as well. By now, most of us have a LinkedIn profile, and we are building a brand which we are marketing through posts, industry thought leadership, and looking for a dream job. But really, can LinkedIn get you your dream job? If yes, what's the approach? How do you go about it? How do you follow? What do you do? To find out, I'm starting this weekly series where we will get some experts to answer your questions, to get some expert advice that is needed to actually play the game, as they say, to get your dream job. Today, I've got two special guests all the way from the US. So let me bring them one by one. But before that, if you've joined us now, please press the thumbs up button, which is the like button, or the love button, and tell us which part of the world are you watching this from. So I want to know where the reach of this particular show is. So please put in the comment section where are you watching us from at the moment. Also, if you've got any question regarding LinkedIn, regarding how to get a job using LinkedIn, put that question in the comment section, and I will definitely take that to the guests. So, which city, which country are you watching us from? That should be in the comment section, and please don't forget to put your questions. Okay, my first guest is Stephanie Nessy, and hopefully I'm getting the name right. Stephanie Nessy. Stephanie is the CEO and founder of MaxUp, a career coaching firm whose mission is to maximize the potential of the future leaders of the nation. She has interned in various top accounting firms, tech companies, and different banks in the New York City and California area. Stephanie is passionate about career coaching and public speaking. She has given over 100 workshops and events in 7 different countries and has been guest speaker for companies like Willy, the AICPA, and UBS, and many more. Stephanie is featured on the CPA Journal, Josh Talks USA, and many more. So without any further ado, let me bring in Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie. Welcome to the Shelly Show. How are you doing?
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be with all of you today and so excited to help you get your next job using LinkedIn. Thanks so much for having me.
Good stuff. So Stephanie, for the benefit of the guests or of the audience, can you please introduce yourself and tell us more about MaxUp and yourself?
Absolutely. So, hi everyone. As he said, my name is Stephanie, and I am a career coach, CEO, and founder of MaxUp. I help people just like you get your next role using non-traditional strategies. And I started my career as a career coach back in 2019. So it's been 2 years now that I have had the pleasure of helping people get their next role, maximize their potential by helping them with their resumes, helping them with cover letters. But one of my favorite ones is how to use LinkedIn to get your next role. And so today's topic is one of my favorite ones to say. I like to say that LinkedIn is my best friend. And I hope so that after this call, LinkedIn becomes your best friend too. Thank you so much.
Good stuff. My second guest is called Career Doctor. And let's ask him about that. But my second guest is Tony Dunas, and I'm hopefully getting the name right. We will ask him if I got it right. And he is the founder, Manny is the founder and CEO of Career Doctor, a career development organization committed to empowering untapped talent and first generation students by ensuring they have equitable access to career resources. Being a first generation college graduate himself, Manny experienced firsthand the challenges of not having a mentor and having minimal resources to guide him. His mantra is lift while you climb and believes in holding the door open for untapped talent by providing mentorship and empowering them to learn many valuable life skills, from having a growth mindset to networking like a boss and many more. So Manny is over 150 has brought over 150 industry leaders, recruiters, hiring managers, and career coaches together from top companies like Facebook, Apple, Amazon, and Google, you name it, and he's done all of that. So without any further ado, let me bring in Manny to the show. Hi, Manny, the Career Doctor. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Shailendra.
Good stuff. Thank you for being on the show. So, Manny, tell us about Career Doctor. How did you come up with this concept, and what is it all about? And also, tell us about yourself as well.
Yes. Thank you for asking. So, Career Doctor was established 2 years ago. I was still working at Year Up, and at this place called Year Up, I'm the founding employment placement manager, helping underserved communities, young adults from these areas, earn internships at Facebook. And so while I was doing this, and teaching them classes on resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn branding, right? I thought to myself, well, I would love to help more people, right, and reach more people, not just young adults, but people from different backgrounds and from different parts of the world. And so I thought to myself, what would be a brand, a company that would speak to people and would, when I walk into the building, people would say, "The doctor's in," or well, a play on words, right? And so it's memorable for people, and that this is a company, an organization that is here to support you, just like how medical professionals do, right? They cure you, right? So for me, it's cures for careers. And so that's why I came up with this concept and what I'm doing in my 9 to 5 as working at this nonprofit called Year Up, where I'm the employment placement manager. And then outside of that, as the Career Doctor, when I put this lab coat on, right, it's me supporting people in my spare time, my 9 to 5, burning the midnight oil, and really just doing my best to lift while I climb and send the elevator back down and uplifting people.
Good stuff. Thank you both of you for joining us. One fun fact about both of you, one by one. Stephanie, tell us one fun fact about yourself.
Fun fact about me is that I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic, and I came to the US 6 years ago, and I speak 3 languages.
Interesting. Manny?
Yeah, so my fun fact is that I'm an ordained minister, and I've married 2 couples. And I just do that for fun, but people just come to me and ask me to marry them, I guess. And so that's something I do whenever people ask me.
Interesting. Okay, LinkedIn, let's start from the basic. So tell us, what is the most important thing to do to attract recruiters on your profile? So give us, what should a normal person who's looking for a job be doing at the very fundamental basic level? Who wants to start? Steph?
Yeah, I can start. Awesome. So here it is out. If you're a job seeker, I'll tell you the following. Take a notepad, take your phone, whatever it is, and start writing down notes, because what I'm going to tell you is something that have helped thousands of clients that I've had in the past few years. LinkedIn has become one of the most attractive platforms for recruiters to get their next talent. I mean, COVID-19 happened. We're under global pandemic, and unfortunately, not a lot of live events are happening. So how do we make sure that we continue getting attraction from recruiters if we don't have in-person career fairs, in-person networking events, and all these things? Well, your number one best friend is going to be LinkedIn, right? And so here are 2 things that you can do as a job seeker who's never used LinkedIn in the past and you're just brand new to LinkedIn, is make sure that your visibility on LinkedIn is public. So more often than not, I see a lot of people who send me connection requests and they don't have a profile picture available, so I can't see the profile picture at all. There are a couple of things that I can't see from their profile either, and it's because their visibility on LinkedIn is not public. And now, why is this important, you may ask, right? Imagine a recruiter who wants to reach out to you as a job seeker, and they can't see your picture or they can't see your information. What's going to happen? You lose an opportunity, right? So make sure your visibility is public. And number two is there are a couple of 5 things that I like to call it 5 things on a tree, which is cover header, profile picture, headline, about section, and the next thing that comes about the about section, which you would think it's the experience section, which is actually right, but I would like to say it's the call to action on your about section. So those 5 things are basic for any job seekers to have. Now I'll let Manny continue with this. Manny, what do you think?
Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, so just to go a little bit more below the surface here, and this is actually something that I worked on with my students at Year Up. So I had a class on refining their LinkedIn profiles. And 2 of the things that we worked on this week was their headline as well as their banner, right? And these are actually some concepts that we've been talking a lot about on the Clubhouse app, right? So one was the banner, which is prime real estate to also brand yourself as a job seeker and what you're looking for next in your career. Right? A lot of people will put, banners that are maybe just a background with like pretty flowers or, cityscapes, but that is just kind of lost real estate for, showing people who you are, your authentic self, what you're passionate about, and what you're looking for next, right? So I would say, really take advantage of that space because that's huge. It's like right across the top of your LinkedIn. It's like the first thing someone's going to see and their eyes are going to land on. Right, so take advantage of that space and the headline itself, right, which is that space right below your name, right below your name. And what I've told my students is that, and I did a live walkthrough with them. I typed in recruiting coordinator. You get the drop-down list of all recruiting coordinators on LinkedIn, and this is similar to what recruiters will see, right, when they're on LinkedIn Recruiter. They search a certain job title. You'll see the drop-down list of all these people, and it'll be their name, their headlines, one after another. And when we did this, it was just a stream, a flood of recruiting coordinators from different companies around the world, right? But none of them stood out. They all said recruiting coordinator, recruiting coordinator, recruiting coordinator, right? And they all just seemed the same, right? So you have such an amazing opportunity to stand out in that list when people are searching for talent, right? So you can use that headline to tell people more about yourself. You can actually fit so many characters in there that you probably don't realize. So if you're like to go to my profile right now, Manny the Career Doctor, you would see that it says Career Doctor, First Generation, Career Connoisseur, Job Search Jedi, all of these things that really brand me of who I am and how I help people. So I would encourage all of you to take advantage of that space and really maximize the potential of your LinkedIn profiles. Over to you, Shailendra.
So guys, if you like that tip, please press the like button so that more people can learn from it. And also share this video with as many people as possible. For Facebook, I think there is a cute thing to do. If you could share this video with groups where people are trying to learn from experts and getting a job in job portals, please share with those groups as well. So more and more people can learn from these two people who are taking time from different side of the world and talking to you guys. So please. And if you've got a question, put that in the comment section and I'll take that. Okay, now that is interesting. Tell me about job listings. So this is funny, right? So you go to LinkedIn and the very natural thing to see is job listings there. And you go on job listings, search for a job, and you tend to apply. How effective is applying to those jobs? I've heard that no one gets any answers from those job listings, and people don't even, recruiters don't even look at those jobs which are coming, those responses or applications that are coming from those jobs. What do you think, Manny?
Yes, thank you for that question. Now, when you're applying on a place like LinkedIn, it's almost no different than if you apply on a place like Glassdoor or Indeed or Monster or any one of these job boards. It's literally just a job board integrated into LinkedIn, except it has a lot more features that lead to people's profiles, and you can pretty much find information on them. So I highly encourage you to continue using LinkedIn to apply to jobs. One, because you can see how many people apply, Right? You can actually see that number, how many people apply to jobs, and it's under 20. Right? You can be one of the first people to apply. Now, as the number raises, it gets over like 100, 200 people, and it's like a, highly sought after job, then yes, it becomes, increasingly challenging and difficult to, turn the heads of recruiters, or let's say the applicant tracking system in this case. That it does become a little bit more difficult when you're more on the tail end of applying to jobs. So quick tip is when you see a job, or if you're looking for a specific job, set up notifications so that you are notified when it pops up, so you can be one of the first to apply to that job. Otherwise, when you're on the tail end, it is going to be challenging, and you may not hear back. It really is, kind of like, it can be a luck factor involved with this, because it's so hard to tell when your resume is going to be looked at, who it's going to be looked at by, and that is like another conversation in its own, applicant tracking systems. But that's what I'll put on the table for all of you here.
Good stuff. Stephanie, what do you think?
Yeah, such a great question. I would say if this is a tip that I recommended to a lot of people, and is if you see a job on LinkedIn, I would recommend for you to try to find who the recruiter for that job is. And easy way to do that is go look for that company. Like, let's say if it's a small to mid-sized firm, and look at the recruiters at that company. So the reason why is that you always want to try to find out who's the recruiter and the hiring manager for that role. So if you don't know what hiring manager is, so I'll tell you. Like, say, you're applying for a data analytics role, and there is a data analytics manager or a data analytics senior vice president, whatever it is, of that specific role, and you find them on LinkedIn. More often than not, they might be the hiring manager for that role. We just don't know, right? And what I would say is try to always develop the relationship with those individuals even before you apply. So let's say you know the recruiter, or you don't know the recruiter, but you start reaching out to people. You can try to, start a relationship in which you can ask them, hey, you share the job, and you say, hey, I saw this job and I'm dying to apply for it, but I would love to know if you by any chance know who's the recruiter that's hiring for this. I would love to introduce myself, and just make it a warm conversation, not just a cold application, right? And so what's happening is that you're probably part of the 1% of people that did that. A lot of people just apply and just click and apply on the job listing on LinkedIn. But if you are part of that, of those individuals who take it out of their way to go and reach out to those hiring managers and recruiters, your chances of at least, getting your face into the hiring manager are very high, right? So I would encourage everyone who's watching this, if you see a job on LinkedIn, try to make warm conversations with recruiters and, hiring managers at those companies before you even apply. And of course, make sure you apply, because it's more chances for you to get yourself out there. But I will leave it at that for now. And I'm sure there will be more and more questions coming up for that.
Okay, so that's a good, fair explanation. Guys, if you like that, please press the like button. I would say ask you to do that again. And also, if you've got a question, please put that in the comment section, and I'll take that to the two people here. So very quickly, let me extend that. So someone is looking for a job. He sees a job posting. What should they do? And Stephanie, you've actually explained a bit about that, reaching out to the hiring manager and reaching out to the companies. What's your point of view on that, Manny? How do you think you should approach that?
Yes, I love this part. I love getting into this part because, we're starting to get into the networking aspect of using LinkedIn, right? How do you find the right person? How are you reaching out to them, right? So for this particular piece here, with reaching out to them for a job, you see a job, you want to apply to it, right? One of the first things you might think of, like, well, who is hiring for this job, right? So some of the things that you can do, is go on to the company that is hiring, right? You can do that by searching the company in the search bar, right? And then clicking see all employees, right? And depending on what the title of the role is, let's say, for example, it's for software engineer. Right. One of the things that I encourage you all to do is look up software engineers at that specific company, right? And start looking for potentially people that are maybe on that team that are hiring, right? Because a lot of times at these larger companies, you'll see that there'll be a software engineer and they'll say like a specific team that they're on in their headline or in their actual job experience. And those are the people that you may want to reach out to, right? And you reach out to them for a couple of different reasons, right? And one of my favorite reasons is informational interviews. And you can do these at all points of your job search, but an informational interview is so amazing because there's so much value that you can get out of that. And one of them leads to a referral if you know how to play your cards right when you're actually doing the informational interview, talking to a software engineer about what they do, how they got into the role, and tips in terms of how you can get into a role like that at a company like that. And then in the end, ask them, can they connect you with anyone, in this field that would be able to support you in your job search. And that's what I do, and that's what I encourage people to do. And it always just kind of cascades after that into leading more conversations with industry professionals. So that's a piece of like networking, and something that I love doing, encouraging people to do in their job searches is they see a job, immediately should be tracking down the person and steering that toward a potential informational interview, which can lead to referrals.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now let me ask another question, and I'm just giving a bit of a twist to it. And how do you advise a job seeker to approach a hiring manager? Now, I don't know the hiring manager for that role because that's never mentioned in the job listing or job posting. So how do you reach them? And there are two aspects of it. One is that you may be connected to the hiring manager already because from your past history. And second, you figure out first of all, how to figure out the hiring manager. And if you do, then how do you connect to them? Because there is another thing, if you do a cold connection request, the chances are that they just can decline or they just ignore you. So how do you go about that? Is that something that you can explain, Stephanie?
Yeah, of course. I love this topic. So let's break it down into different pieces, right? So I'll tackle the piece in which you want to discover who the hiring manager is, and then once you do, how you reach out to the hiring manager. So there are a couple of factors here. Number one is, if you, as Manny mentioned before, if you see the name of the role, chances are you're going to find a person on LinkedIn that has a similar role, but more on a higher level. So let's say if you're applying for a data analyst role, there might be a data analyst, senior manager, or manager for AI and machine learning. I'm just saying, being very specific here. If you look for that on LinkedIn, chances are you're gonna find just a couple of people with those titles, right? And what you want to do is that you want to make sure, number one, is check if you have any common connections with those individuals to see if there's anyone who can introduce you to the hiring manager. That's the first one. So always look for ways in which you can create the warm conversation as opposed to just sending a cold message. Number two, if there's no one in your network who knows this person, I would try to check what's the activity like for this person. So the activity section of LinkedIn tells you whether or not this person is active, meaning do they create content on LinkedIn? Do they post jobs on LinkedIn? Do they comment on other people's posts? And I would try to see specifically what do they post about? What do they comment about? What do they really like? And I would use that for my message. And now comes the call message portion. So if you don't know anyone who can introduce you, but you know this is the hiring manager, you can still send a message, but you can tailor it to the person and not just you. You wouldn't say, here's my resume, or hey, I found this job. I would love to know if you're a hiring manager. That's not what you want to say, right? Couple of things. You want to make sure in that message you're tailoring to the person. So if you see that they enjoy talking about the development of data analytics and AI and automation, I would mention that. I would even mention an article that you read, or maybe something that you wrote. This is a blog that I wrote about, this topic or this role. And the second piece is that you would want to share with the hiring manager a project or something where you really showcase your skills, right? You want to be concise because these hiring managers don't have all the time in the world. So if you attach a project, a link somewhere, your GitHub, your PowerPoint presentation, something that you put together that is specific to the skills to that job, and you send that over to the hiring manager, I promise you less than 1% of people do that, especially job seekers, right? So if you have something on hand that you can show the hiring manager that you have the skills of that job listing, and you are all they need. You literally have to walk in with that confidence, like, hey, I'm what you need in your team right now. And you got to show them not only with words, but also with the projects that you have on hand. So that's kind of the mentality you need to approach when you're looking for the hiring manager. Then when you find the hiring manager, this is how you would approach that. So I'll let Manny take from this one if you want to talk about if you know the hiring manager.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with Stephanie. Those two strategies are like just really hit home, right? If you know the hiring manager, what are you going to say, right? And how are you going to stand out with all the other people that maybe know the hiring manager or are reaching out, have found them, and that piece of information, that project or that kind of graphic piece of material that you can create is going to help you stand out. I would say another thing that you could that I would add to this that you can do that you may not have thought of is if you have LinkedIn on your phone, okay, you go into your profile, you go into the hiring manager, you go into message them. You can actually do a voice recording and message them as a voice recording. And that will help you stand out as well. And you can, like, whatever you would type up in that message, to the hiring manager, you can record that in like a little voice memo and then they can play it. And that will help you stand out because I guarantee you, not as many people are doing that. And the thing is, 'cause not a lot of people may not know. And also a lot of people may not be comfortable recording themselves and being heard, right? But we're talking about like how to get your job, your dream job on LinkedIn here. So a big piece of this is how are you standing out from all of the other people that are, are gunning for the same job. So that would be my 2 cents in the bucket on this one, Shailendra.
I'll add to that actually. You mentioned the voice. Actually, you can do a video too. And that makes it even different because, you just put a camera in front of you and that shows your personality and also shows to the hiring manager where are you coming from and you're not scared or shy away from, reaching out. I think that could be a different, my point of view.
Yeah. Also, let me add an example to that. So, I'm also a hiring manager, so I have my own company, as you know, and I hire people like marketing, program management, and a couple of other roles. So, I'll give an example that happened in the past. I was hiring for a marketing position, and we were getting a lot of applications, right? A lot of call messages for the application, and the list goes on. There was one person in specific that really stood out to me on their application. So this person took the time to watch at least 3 of my LinkedIn lives, 3 of my videos, go over my profile, and they use all of this information to put together a video of themselves talking about, hey, Stephanie, so I know based on your videos that you like people who are this and this and this. Based on those 3 things that you like, here is how those 3 things align with what I am based on 3 examples that person mentioned in the video. On top of that, this person went out of their way to analyze the social media for my company, and they sent me a PowerPoint via email saying, here are 3 things that your company is doing well, and here are 3 things that you could improve upon. No one else ever did that before. That person interned with me for about a year. And that just goes to show you that me as a hiring manager, someone who hires someone, this is how impressed I was for, the proactiveness and initiative that person took. So if you take this as an example and you do that as a job seeker, I promise you it will make a difference because honestly, not everyone is doing that.
That's really, really interesting. Actually, if you can do something and reach out to the hiring manager with that, well, the analysis that they did, this is amazing. There are people doing all different kind of things. Any other example that comes to mind, please keep thinking about it. Let me ask to the audience, guys, this particular video is being watched by more than 40 people at the moment. And no one is asking questions. So I think what is happening at the moment is that people are thinking that if they ask questions, they will be exposing themselves that, they're trying to get a new job. I don't know where they're coming from. But guys, if you've got a question, please put that in the comment section. I will definitely take that question. It doesn't have to be your situation, but you can have a question where you have been in the past and you want to ask that question. Please don't shy away because this is your opportunity to ask these 2 people the question that you may have. So please put that in the comment section and don't forget to like and share this video with as many people as possible. Now, coming to some unique, so what you mentioned, Stephanie, was a unique use case, right? Any other success story or use case, Manny, that comes to your mind where someone stood out altogether?
So I can actually use myself as an example, right? So I interviewed at LinkedIn, right? And when I interviewed there, I actually used this very method that Stephanie is talking about, right? And because I used this and I sent this over to the hiring manager and the recruiting team, it was actually used in the interview process, right? All the questions that they asked me were all around what I had put into that presentation. Right? And so it made things a lot more easier because, I knew what I put in that presentation. And so it was easier for me to, make it through that interview process with the hiring manager and answer their questions. And so I can really testify that this method really does work for job seekers. And this is a place like LinkedIn, where this is being simulcast too. Right? So this method is, I want to say, not everybody uses this method, and not everybody knows of it either, right? But I can tell you from experience that by using it, right, it can have an impact and does have an impact in your job search as well as the interview process. It's not limited to when you're reaching out to people. It can spill over into the actual interview process, which is pretty cool, and it allows you to kind of control the interview a little bit more, right? Because a lot of times you don't know what to expect in the interview process. So this is a great way to, to take some of that power back, right? And, be able to control it for yourself as a job seeker.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Now I'll create a scenario, and there are questions coming in. People have started questioning, which is very good. But guys, if you've got a question, put that in the comment section. I'm waiting for your questions to be asked. So, and don't get me wrong, there are lots of people watching, but they're not asking questions for some reason. So please, if you've got a question, please ask, not only for your benefit, but for the benefit of others who will watch this replay at some point in time. And if they miss out on the questions, just ideate. Think about what kind of questions you have if you want to get a dream job using LinkedIn. Okay, let me create a scenario for you. You are a person who's looking for a job, or maybe not, but you are wanting a dream job. Everyone wants a dream job, and you're thinking about it, and you connect it to various leaders. Now, what would you do? Would you directly approach them to say, hey, I'm looking for a job? What would be your approach? And I'm creating this scenario, so I'm wanting a job. You're wanting a job in a particular division of theirs, possibly their peer or possibly senior to them. How do you go about this? So you've got a connection. How do you use that connection? Manny, do you want to go first?
So if I heard correctly, the scenario that you're proposing here is if we have already established a connection with someone like an industry leader or someone that we know can open doors for us. Mm-hmm. How do we ask? Like how do we ask them for support? Is that correct? Mm-hmm. All right. So one of the things that I love doing, and this is something that I hear all the time in places like on Clubhouse, that audio app, right, is when people come up onto stage, right, to shoot their shot or connect with someone for the very first time, a lot of times some of these people will actually have a give, right? Will have something to give first, right? Give before you take. And I really love that because it really stands out, because the majority of people, are going to be asking for something. Right? You're going to be asking for a job, asking to look at my resume, ask. Right? So I would implore people to think about, how you can give something first, right? Like, and this is something that Stephanie actually mentioned earlier, right? Like, how can you solve or come up with solutions for the things that company, is experiencing, or the challenges that they're experiencing, right? And if you have done your research, right, and then you've done your research first, and you found maybe some loopholes, some things that are maybe that need improvements in processes or programs or their website, whatever it is, come with that first. Hey, I noticed that there's a loophole here with your website. There's a bug, and I wanted to offer this solution to you, right? And that would be it's a first impression. And it's so important with how you kind of put your foot forward when you're making that first impression. So I would say giving something before you're asking for something in return, right? And then it'll come, right? The universe will give something back to you, I'm a firm believer in that. So back to you, Shailendra or Stephanie.
Stephanie, what's your point of view?
Yeah, I think Manny, your point was awesome. I always talk about this is you give first and then ask after. So I'll tell you an example, right? I was, and this is with a recruiter, it's not a senior leader, but I just want to give this example. There was this recruiter who posted a job on LinkedIn, and I came across his post, and I had a large community of people who I knew were, people that were qualified for the job. So instead of, just scrolling through, because I didn't qualify for the job, I wasn't qualified, but I knew people who were. So instead of thinking about ways in which I could connect these people to the recruiter and so on and so forth, I reach out to the recruiter and I say, hey, I have a community of 200 people who are qualified for this role. Do you mind if I share this role with them? She even offered to email me the job details so that I could share with people. And I did that, right? I sent that to a group chat. I sent it everywhere. The next day, the recruiter reached out to me and say, oh my gosh, thank you for doing that. I got over 50 applications. I did not get, in a sense, anything for me because I wasn't looking for anything. I was just wanting to give back. However, that recruiter up to this day, I consider her my friend now. And she's always advocating for me, whether that be introducing me to someone or saying, here's a role at my company, are you interested in that? And so the message behind this is always look for ways in which to think about that you have something that might help that individual. If you help them first, that ask will come afterwards. So this small example that I just gave here did not just happen once. I kept doing that for about 3 years. And, eventually that piled up because a lot of people ask me, right, like, how come you are friends with so many recruiters? And I say, well, that did not happen overnight. It took about 3 years of consistent me giving back to them as opposed to just seeking them to give me, right? And so that kind of like changing the narrative there kind of changed the entire thing for me. And so that's the beauty of really networking. It's not just about what you can get out of as a job seeker, right? You might need a job urgently, but I would ask you to please consider how can you give back to someone else? How can you, help them with whatever they're doing? And then, as Manny said, the universe is, where it will reciprocate it to you one way or another.
Good stuff. Guys, that was awesome advice. So, if you like the advice, press the like button and share this video with others so that they can learn from this advice as well. Okay, before I get to audience Q&A, I have another question for you guys, both of you. Tell us one success story, apart from what you've shared. You've shared a few. One success story which you said, wow, that stood out. And that guy got that job in, say, 10 minutes or, quickly. And also did that out of nowhere using LinkedIn. So let's think about that. So something that just wowed you and something that actually changed someone else's life as well. So that, people can learn from these success stories, which they can also implement in their lives. And I'm really, really big on these because people learn from people. And my view is that if you tell people some success stories, they can use them in their lives, and then it becomes a normal. And that's very, very important. So, Manny, I will go with you first. Any story which you think was awesome, was out of the world?
Yes. So a couple of months back, I did a speaking engagement, kind of just like this. Right? It was for Albert's Job Listings and Referrals, right? And it was a bunch of people from all over the world, joined in, and the topic was around networking, right? And one of the gems that I dropped in that was when you are reaching out to someone, you should be leaving a note. Right? So simple, but I tell you that it makes such an impact because when I was telling the audience, you should be adding a note, right? Researching the person you want to reach out to, finding some type of commonality, and then putting it in that note. And this is something we actually spoke to a little bit ago. Add it into that note, right? And that is going to help you get responses in your job search. And so after that speaking engagement concluded, someone reached out to me, someone that I hadn't asked a question, during one of these engagements, and they connected with me and then messaged me, and they said, Manny, I used that strategy, and guess what? I heard back, and now I have an interview, right? And so I stayed in touch with her just to kind of hear, how that interview process went. And a week later, I'm in round 2, and then finally, like 2 weeks later, I finished the final round and I got the job, right? And this was all just from adding the note, being in this place and hearing, a small piece of advice can make such a huge impact if you take action, right? And that's the key here, right? What you hear, if you take action, right, you will see results, right? If you're not taking action from what you're hearing or taking notes, and making adjustments to your strategies, then you may see the same results that you've been getting, right? Take massive action, right? Even with something so tiny, it could make all the difference, because all it takes is one yes to get the job that you want. So that would be my story, my give here.
Good stuff. Stephanie, your turn.
Yeah, Manny, the one yes is really my motto. I think if you guys go and check my content, I really believe in the one yes. And I'll actually talk about that. But in this example of one person who started creating content on LinkedIn. So I know we haven't touched about, content creation here, but it's really such an important tool that a lot of job seekers don't use. And I'll give you a statistic, right? About 1% of LinkedIn active population create content. So think about for a second, right? You were saying at the beginning, there's 700 million people using the platform, or billion, right? So if you think about 1%, that's about 3 million people. Only 3 million people are creating content. So what does that mean to you? Well, if you're someone who like numbers, you will understand that you're part of the 1% that are doing something that a lot of people are not doing. So I'll tell you the quick story. There was someone who in January started creating content on LinkedIn about his story, how, he resonates with a lot of people. He started engaging with a lot of influencers on LinkedIn and, leaving thoughtful comments, and the list goes on. He was doing everything right. Next thing you know, he was also sharing his interview experiences. Like, I interviewed at X company, had a great time, met XYZ person, and then those recruiters who he met used to comment on his posts as well. He started getting crazy visibility, thousands of views. People started reaching out to him, and 2 months creating content, he got a job at a big company. And all happened because one recruiter saw one of his posts, reached out to him, and everything just happened literally in within 3 to 4 weeks. And I'm talking about from doing something that won't take you more than 5-10 minutes a day, literally. And so if you never creating content in the past, I'm here to tell you today, do it. I personally have gotten many opportunities. 2 of the roles that I got were through LinkedIn content creation. And I'll tell you my story then. I got one of my roles through creating content. I put a post out there about my story. This was in March of 2019. 3, 4, 5 months after, about August. Oh, never mind. In March of 2019, the recruiter reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, hey, I love your post. I really engaged with that. So look at the dates, right? Look at the timeline, March of 2019. In August of 2019, I was attending a conference and I received a phone call. And this was Saturday. And I'm like, hello, this is Stephanie. And then the recruiter said, oh, hi, Stephanie. I don't know if you remember me. I'm XYZ person from this company. And we spoke via LinkedIn because of your content. And I was like, oh, yeah, thank you so much. I was really concerned. I was like, why would the recruiter be calling me, right? I was like, and then she said, oh, are you at this convention right now? Are you at this conference right now? I said, yes, I just arrived today. And then she said, oh, I saw your name on the talent pipeline of resumes, and I thought you would be a great fit for these 2 roles that we're interviewing for tomorrow. Mind you, I had less than 24 hours to prepare for a final round interview for that role. I ended up getting the role. I worked at the company as well. And all of this happened because of one post. And so that just goes to show you how far you can get by just creating content on LinkedIn.
Good stuff. So 2 advices: take notes, create content, correct? Absolutely.
Take action.
And action, absolutely. When you create, take notes, take action, and create content on LinkedIn, that'll be very, very helpful. One more question before I keep on saying that, before I get to the audience Q&A, there are audience questions waiting as well. But there are so many questions that come to my mind, and so I would come to, what is the difference between creating content which is text to pictures to video on LinkedIn? Does that have different impacts altogether on your next big job? Does that make any difference? What do you think? And I know you would have never thought that ways, but this is just that's coming to my mind, Stephanie.
Yeah, great question. So for everyone who's watching this right now, there are a couple of ways in which you can create content, right? There is video. So there's a visual part, there's videos, there's pictures, and then there's also the text portion. There are articles on LinkedIn. And then now there's a new tool that is polls. So polls are getting a lot of traction as well because it's a new tool and a lot of people are interested in engaging in having conversations on LinkedIn. And I would say the following. There's a lot of myth going around in like which type of content really gets the most traction, the most engagement. Generally speaking, when people add visuals, just because human beings really like to see visuals, it just adds a little bit more to your content. I wouldn't say that you should be overdoing it, like, posting a visual every single day, which is just gonna like, it will cause the opposite effect of what you really want to. But I would say though, like if you have a balanced type of post throughout the week, like say one day you put a visual, like a video, an image, another day you create a poll, another day you do an article and so on. It just diversifies the type of content that you create and it just adds much more value to your content. So it does make a difference, especially in the type of content you create. So if you're gonna post about you helping or you attending or you doing this and that, it has a little bit more value if you had a picture to it or certificate or something like that, right? But if it's something that you feel like it doesn't really need the visual, I would just leave it as text. When I'm giving a job search strategy, for example, my content, I usually don't add any visuals to it because I just feel like it's just more easy to just read the text and just take notes and go to action, right? And so it really depends on the type of content you create and how you want to balance it out throughout your content creation strategy. But Manny, what do you think?
Oh, I love this because that I was on a 30-day challenge, right? And I finished it up recently of posting every day to LinkedIn. Right? And so I challenged myself and I asked LinkedIn to hold me accountable for posting every day to LinkedIn, right? And while it was challenging, it was also a lot of fun and rewarding as well. I think at the end of day 30, I reached 100,000 views on my postings over the course of 30 days. And in terms of followers, I was measuring all different types of data here. Right? And I think I had gone up like 500 followers and people who were like connecting with me and looking to see my content. And so while I was doing that, there were a lot of different types of postings I did. I did the polls. I did posts about my life, about me, who I am, my authentic self. I posted about career development things and tips and tricks for jobs. And so the thing is, a lot of people are not sure what to post. Right? And that prevents a lot of people from actually making a post, right? Because you're so busy thinking of what am I going to post, and you just lose a day, you lose 2 days, and you just don't end up posting. Right? So I would encourage people when an idea comes to you, when a spark happens, write it down. Right? I actually got advice from one of my peers who's also a career coach, and she said, whenever the spark hits, right, write it down somewhere, write it in your phone, write it on a whiteboard, right, and then think about it more and make a posting around it. And so that's what I do actually. That's what I do now. That's like how I kind of prep. And sometimes I'll do it the night before. Sometimes I'll do it the day of. Mm-hmm. Give yourself some grace when posting. Right? Obviously, you post in the morning, you'll have the whole day for people to see it. Right? But I would say, don't beat yourself up if you post it in the middle of the day or if you post it in the evening. I actually posted in the evening, like earlier, was it this week? Earlier this week, I posted like in the evening. I was like, is anyone else checking LinkedIn this late right now? And over the course of a couple of days, like so many comments, it's funny because they're seeing it at night. And they're like, yeah, I'm posting and checking my LinkedIn before I go to bed. Right? So just give yourself some grace, especially if you're starting to post for the first time, right? It's good to have some structure, but try to be flexible and fluid with how you post, right? And then it just kind of builds from there. So encourage, yes, let's post as much as you can, but something that you're comfortable with at the same time.
That's raised another question in my mind, and that is, you did a 30-day challenge on LinkedIn. So is that posting too much? So how much is too much posting in a week? So my personal view is that every post needs a life. So if you post something, it should be there for a couple of days before because every post is overwritten by the next post, right? So if I post today and I write another post tomorrow, I feel that it won't reach as many people. Do you think the same? And that means that my dream job is getting far away, though I will be visible to different people with different content, but it is not the same content that everyone will see. What do you think about that?
Great question. I'll start. So I think there's not really a law or a rule that says how much is too much or how much is too little in terms of how you create content. It depends on what your end goal is, right? So there's people who are business owners who are trying to get more sales driven to their business. Well, they post every day, right? And I would assume in a sense that's kind of leading towards Manny's side, which is kind of developing that thought leadership and also like driving more people to know him as a thought leader and as a person who has something important. And then there's also other type of people who have other goals. Like, let's say I want to get a job, right? And so imagine as a job seeker, you are just posting that you need a job every day or something like that. Well, that is different, right? But if you have something unique that you want to share, don't be limited by like, am I posting too much? That kind of creates what I like to call imposter syndrome, right? So you shouldn't let imposter syndrome stop you from posting. I used to have a lot when I was starting off posting. I started posting back in 2018, and I don't know if you were active on LinkedIn in 2018, but you would know in 2018 you wouldn't see as many people creating content. You would see is majority of people sharing things about more technical skills and things like that. You wouldn't see that much content creation going on. And so LinkedIn has changed over the years, and now we're seeing a lot of more content creators on the platform. And so based on what I've seen, the most successful people who create content, they develop a community. They develop a tribe, what I like to call. And that community will follow them no matter when you post. You can post at 5 a.m. in the morning, at 7 p.m. You can post every day. You can post once a week. That community that you form will follow you. I can tell you, last year around this time, I remember I started being active on LinkedIn in February of 2020. I had around 3,000 followers. I was just starting off, like, let me try this out. I made a post, and that post went viral. It got like over 500,000 views in like a day. And I was really scared because, if you're someone who's just starting off on LinkedIn and creating content, you get a content viral, what is going on? And I just kept going. And then I went from 3,000 to now 60,000 within a year. And all that has been through creating content and literally just doing it. I do it 5 days a week, and that's just every week, right? And is that too much? Is that too little? I'm not really sure. But what I'm sure about is that there's a community that I formed throughout the months that are expecting that are waiting for that message that I want to share. And so you just go with that as opposed to focusing more on like what is too much, what is too little. But that's, the way I see it. And I would love to know what Manny has to say as well.
Manny, what do you think?
So as far as the posting, right, and is what's too much or what's too little, right? So I never missed a day in that challenge. I never missed a day in 30 days, and I actually continue to post. I'm aiming for 60 now, right? And I want to say that for the people who are listening and you're wondering whether I should post or not to a place like LinkedIn, LinkedIn in itself promotes doing these types of things. Networking. It's a networking platform, right? So in itself is encouraging people who are professionals, who are, from all walks of life to network with each other. And so if you're on this platform, you're highly encouraged to explore, what works best for you. And for me, posting every day, I'm trying to make it become a habit, right? By doing these challenges, so kind of like tricking my brain, right? So for everyone who is wondering whether they should take on a challenge or post X amount of times a day or a week, right? I would say just do what works best for you. Right? Do what works best for you, but know that LinkedIn is a place where it's an open space to do this, right? And everyone else who's maybe posting or not posting, not everyone is going to agree with what you post, right? But there are millions of people out there who will agree with what you're saying. So I would say, take that step into that unknown and explore and see what's out there waiting for you.
Good stuff. Okay, that was enough of me blabbering. Guys, if you've got a question, please put that in the comment section and I'll take that question for sure. And we are getting into the audience Q&A section. So let me quickly get through there. Good stuff. Let's start with the comments first. And they're coming from everywhere: LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Let's take them one by one. And I'm still mentioning the offer is open to everyone. If you've got a question, put that in the comment section and we'll take them. Dan Roth says, hi Dan, how are you? Yeah, Steph, one of your fans. Dan Roth says, Manny is okay, I guess. Manny?
We know Dan.
Yeah, we know that. He's one of our friends.
Let's say hi to Dan. Hi Dan, how are you? Good stuff. Cat1X says, great info. Thank you, Kat. Hope you enjoyed. Roy Matthews says, good conversation. Thank you, Roy. Hope you learned a few things from here. Now, here is a real comment. Well, all the real comments, actually. Jialin Wong says, all my interviews have been through networking on LinkedIn. Guys, can you explain a bit about that? How do you go about networking to get an interview? How does that work? Anyone?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at this one. And Stephanie, I'm sure you're also familiar with Jialing. She's on Clubhouse a lot. She comes to our rooms, so she's always networking, always open to that. And I would say that all of your interviews, if they're through networking, right, it's really just having that growth mindset, right, and being open to the possibilities of what's waiting out there for you. In fact, the job that I have right now was because of LinkedIn, right? I saw a posting on LinkedIn and I pursued it. And I'll tell you how that happened was I was talking and partnering with a recruiter at the staffing firm called Robert Half. At the time, I was working at a coding boot camp called Coding Dojo in California. And I was trying to help my students get jobs. So, of course, speaking to recruiters. And he had mentioned, just in passing that, oh yeah, I'm like volunteering right now at this place called Year Up. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And it's the new year, right? In the new year, everyone wants to volunteer. Everyone's looking for another way to volunteer and give back in the new year. So I asked him, so how do I get involved with that, right? So he's like, yeah, there's this woman at Year Up that you should reach out to. That's who my connection is, my point of contact. So I did. Reached out to her and ended up getting a tour of Year Up, walking around and being a part actually of their community. I sat in with all the students who were coming back from internships from all over the Bay Area, and it was an amazing experience. So after that, I was like, okay, yes, I want to volunteer. Let me be a mentor. Let me help with interviews. And so that's what I was volunteering for at the time. Then one day I saw a post on LinkedIn by the very same connection. That woman who was in charge of the volunteering. And she posted they were looking for an employment placement specialist. And so I reached out. I was like, hey, I noticed that you're looking for this. You're looking for someone to fill this position. I'm actually, starting to look myself for other opportunities. And as you know, I volunteer already at Year Up. And so can we do an informational interview? We did it. And at the end of that informational interview, something interesting was revealed. She was actually gearing up to leave herself, right? And she encouraged me to. She's like, you know what? Why don't you apply to this job? Right? It's not even open yet, but I want you to throw your hat in the ring for it. Mm-hmm. So I did, And I threw my hat in for actually 2 jobs over there, but I ended up taking the one that was partnered with Facebook. And so here I am today, still serving, young adults from underserved communities. And it's all because I saw that posting on LinkedIn, and I followed up with it. I took action. Right? I reached out, shoot my shot, did an informational interview. Right? And I can't even imagine what would have happened if I didn't, where I would be today. So I want to say, like, the interviews and networking, coming from LinkedIn, right? When you're engaged in the community and you have a give, right? A lot of the universe gives back to you. Right? It has a mysterious way of working, but for me, that's how I got my job today. It was actually through LinkedIn in that avenue. So I'll pass it over to Stephanie.
Stephanie, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the examples that I was given earlier, they all refer to that one thing of really networking. And so I would say the following: like, networking on LinkedIn does work. Although it might sound like really repetitive, but it does work. And so if you're watching this right now, you might be wondering, like, but I never get a response back, or how do I continue the conversation? Like, I know how to start, but then how do I continue it, right? And so I think that the problem with job seekers is not really the reaching out to someone. They can do that and they can get responses. It's really, how do I make sure I continue that conversation to the point that I can get an interview, a referral, or something out of that relationship? And so I would say the key for that is really following up, right? And I'll tell you the quick sample from Gia, who is the one that asked this question. She shows up every single week to all of Manny's room where I am. And she always, asks questions. She's always there, and so on and so forth. Guess what? Not only me and Manny remembers her, everyone in that room remembers her name. And we're not talking about that there's just like me, and there's people from Facebook, Google, like you name it, right? On those stages, and they remember her name. And what's gonna happen is that once you start doing those follow-ups, they're gonna remember her name. They're gonna remember her because she's been consistently showing up. So if you're a job seeker right now and you're wondering, how do I really take the conversation from just a single conversation to getting something? It's really like that follow-up, right? If everyone went from like working in person to work from home, have you asked that professional, like, hey, how are you doing with adjusting to working from home? Would love to like schedule a call and just share with you some secrets that I've been doing to kind of like keep myself in a good health, right? And something like that might seem really simple, but that it's professional, and at the same time you kind of like helping that person. And here comes back the give back, right? Here comes back the helping. You can follow up by helping instead of following up to just get something. If you do that, you establish a long-term relationship as opposed to just a transactional one. So for me, my favorite networking relationships are the ones that I think about them in a long-term perspective. Networking is a long-term investment. So I want you all that are watching this right now to really take it as a long-term perspective in which you, as a job seeker, are going to keep these people on your network forever, or however many times you want, because at the end of the day, it's really a long-term investment, not just something that you want to get out of it and that's it.
Good stuff. So that makes Jilling a good candidate for one of our sessions. So Jilling, here is an offer for you. As we're trying to do this every week, maybe next week, Jilling, you can join us. I assume you're somewhere in Asia. If you're not, correct me if I'm wrong. If you're in Asia, then we can do it at a later time for a wider audience, which can, so we've got early morning in India at the moment, which will move as well. So there is an opportunity, Jilling. Please connect me on LinkedIn and we may get you here. Okay, next, let's move on. But guys, if you've got a question, put that in the comment section. I'm taking questions at the moment. Okay, and comments, of course. Dan says, Stephanie is my hero. She looks incredibly happy right now. So big to Dan and big to Steph. You're a hero, and when I think you two are heroes, absolutely. We're taking your time out at this hour. Well, Stephanie, for you, it must be 11 o'clock at night, and you taking that time out for the audience. I really, really appreciate it, and that is I will say this is social service, and helping people out is too good, and I'm so happy, and you both are my heroes today. So Dan, you're absolutely spot on.
Yeah,
And Dan,
Manny should change his name from the career doctor to the career hero. So Manny, please.
Ooh, man. Another a brand change.
another one from Dan. He says, I've never had my hair as good as 7 p.m. as Manny does right now. Manny, what's going on here? Okay, let's get to some serious questions. Okay, guys, we've got some questions here. Let's go. So, Amit Griage says, how to explain career gaps in an interview? Who wants to go first? Stephanie?
Okay.
Sure, that's a good one. I'll keep it brief, short, and sweet. It depends on what were you doing in the career. You know myself. Let's say you were in a career gap for whatever reason. You shouldn't take that as a liability. You shouldn't take that as a disadvantage. It's not the end of the word. It's not the most negative thing of the word. A lot of people actually do that. And it happens, right? And so if you look at it from that perspective, that's the same attitude that you're going to take when you're talking about it. So if I have a career gap, I would say, although I've been doing X, Y, and Z in the past 3 years, I also took it upon myself to keep myself updated with industry. So I keep, mentioning a job because I really like mentioning examples. So like say you're in marketing. So even though I've been taking care of X, Y, and Z, I've been recently reading about the developments of digital marketing and social media. And I have taken some courses to develop my market analytics and brand research skills. With that, that's how I came across your company, and I saw the development and migration that you guys are doing from digital marketing using different platforms. And I just love the fact that I can incorporate what I've been learning in the past 2 years into your company. Actually, I got the chance to read over this article or work on this migration, on this new integration that your company is doing. And here's a couple of things that I've been able to research and understand. Boom, you change from just focusing on the career gap to more of like, what do you do or what can you do for the company? Now you shift completely the narrative into, I can help your company even though I had a 3, 4, 5 years career gap. And so this comes back to this type of, I like to call it negative connotation questions. So what is your biggest weakness? Tell me a time when you failed and when you spend about career gaps. A lot of people focus on the negative, which is basically, if you have a career gap, a hiring manager will be a little uncomfortable and have a little bit of doubts, like, I don't know, if you're being on the team. Your job as a job seeker is to convince the hiring manager that you are the right fit, even though you had the career gaps. And so the way to do that, it's really focusing on what do you do throughout that time and what are you doing currently. So bring it back to the present and talk about what are you doing currently to close that gap and basically offer the company what they're looking for. I'll let Manny also answer that.
Stephanie, you really nailed it. And I want to provide a real world example, and I'll use myself. Back in 2016, I was laid off for the very first time, right, in my career, right, and so pretty much ground zero, right, depression and no income, bills still piling up, and a lot of what I do today is inspired by that experience from back in 2016. And one of the things that I never stopped doing though was learning during that time. Right, so I was actually in the coding bootcamp space, right? And I was looking for another opportunity in that space, doing the same thing that I was doing prior. And so one thing that I did was I strategically started learning how to code, right? So I took free code camp, I believe. And it was like front end development, learning like how to code. And so that when I would land interviews, when they asked me, so why are you job searching right now? Like, what's the reason for this gap in your employment? And I would tell them, like, currently, in my spare time, I'm job seeking right now, but I'm also learning how to code so that I can be more of an asset to these software engineers that I'm trying to place and really understand the languages that they're coding in and be more supportive and helpful to them, right? It's incredibly difficult to help a software engineer when you don't understand the languages like coding, right? And so that was something I took it upon myself to, add value to myself while I was unemployed. And actually, the job that I got, right, I mentioned that I was coding Dojo, which I mentioned earlier, and that was something that the feedback that they gave me. Like, when you're unemployed, you were still doing something. You weren't just sitting around idly, kind of, being depressed. While that was the case, I was still making moves and still moving forward, right? And trying to help as best I can, help myself and others. And so that's an example, and that's like the job I ended up landing, because that was one of the reasons why I landed that job, because I stayed busy and I stayed, learning new things to help myself and the people that I was going to be helping in the future. So that is what I'll add here, my 2 cents in the bucket for this question.
Good stuff. And I think that's a good idea. You can learn, and there are so many things that you can do which can be explained to define your career gap that you've got. I think that's there. Guys, if you've got a question, I'm still taking questions, so please put them in the comment section and I'll take them. But don't forget to like and share this video with as many people as possible. Very, very important. People need to learn from these two heroes, my heroes for tonight. Let's go next. Angelo Kulos, a great friend of mine, and he says, I have used email and messages to reach out for jobs. Nearly zero feedback. Why? Very direct question, and I know Angelo is like this. Manny, you go first this time.
I think that this is really case by case, and it really depends on what you're putting into those messages, right? So it's really, for me, it's really hard to know exactly why someone's not responding without seeing the actual message and how you're reaching out to them. So I want to say that maybe part of the reason why you're not getting a response is what are you putting into those messages, right? Are you asking for something before you give something, right? Is the title, in the subject line, what are you putting for that, right? Is it grabbing the attention of the manager? Are you engaging? Are you going on to, like what Stephanie mentioned earlier, are you going onto their profile, going into the activity section? What are they posting? Are you commenting on that? Are you creating, kind of like that connection already before even messaging them? Right? If you're not doing these things and you're not being, intentional, thoughtful about what you're putting into these messages, you may get these like crickets. You may get crickets for sure. And I will say, during that time when I was in 2016 unemployed, that was me in the very beginning of that process, right? And so over and over, I would change things up and see kind of what sticked, right? I would change my messaging, like what I would put into there. I would change it up and see what worked, see what didn't work. And then I finally found a groove. And that's when, the opportunities started coming to me and people started responding. So I think that's where I'll leave it, because I think, Stephanie will do a great job of going into detail with this for sure.
Stephanie, what do you think? And before you start, Stephanie, one comment which Manny made. Angelo, if you can take a snapshot or take a picture of the comment and put that in the comment section, possibly Manny and Stephanie can have a look what you're writing, or even if you just copy paste in the comment section, and I'll take that, I'll show it to them. If you're still watching, Angelo, please put that email message. Even if it is big, doesn't matter. We can analyze it. Why not? Stephanie, your turn.
Yeah, I think Manny covered many of the important things here. I'll tell you this, and I learned this from someone. When you're on LinkedIn, there's two things. I'm sure Manny knows this. There's the offense and there's the defense, right? And so I think a lot of the times with job seekers, they should be on the offense for sure, but then they should also make sure that the defense part it's also working. And I'll explain to you guys what the defense is about. How many emails are you getting, right? How many recruiters are reaching out to you? And the way that happens is, how's your LinkedIn profile looking? And so if you see that you're not getting enough views, so I don't know if you guys know, on your dashboard on LinkedIn, there is this data analytics tool which shows you how many people are viewing your profile, from which companies, and so on and so forth. The point is that not a lot of people use that tool, right? And we should, because if you see that your incremental visibility on LinkedIn, like if your profile is not really going up on views over time, then there's something you need to change, right? Because I remember, I'll give you a quick number. About 3 months ago, my profile views visibility was around 30,000, right? Right now it's over 300,000. So in about 3 months, I went from 30,000 to 300,000 viewers or visibility or people who view my profile, however you want to call it. And so I analyze what did I do in the past 3 months to get that, right? And so for me specifically, what really worked is content creation. And I've said that in the past, right? But you might want to know like what really works for you. Is it your cover banner? Is it your headline? Is it your picture? Is it the 20-second cover story on your LinkedIn? Now LinkedIn launched something about cover story, which is 20 seconds. I don't know if it's available on all countries, but I know in the US at least, you have 20 seconds to introduce yourself. And so the list goes on. So with this being said, that's a defense. How many emails are you getting? How many inbound messages? And then the offense is how many are you sending? And so when we talk about the offense part, and I think Manny did a great job explaining how you should tailor those messages to those people, I would say the following. If that first message didn't work out, don't use the same message to the next 10 people. Now change the strategy, right? So use a different type of message with someone else and see how it goes. And then you keep doing that until you find like that really niche message or structure that will really work out for you. And then the next thing is send one email, but then don't wait like 3 months or a month for that person to respond. Maybe send a follow-up message a week after, right? Like, hey, I'm sure you get a lot of messages and this probably got lost in your DMs. I'd love to connect with you and see if you saw my message. More often than not, it's not that people don't want to reply to you, it's that they're busy. Right? People get tons and tons of messages. And so you want to make sure that if you send them a message they haven't replied in a week, then you follow up with them. Now, the real deal here is that how do you know who to follow up with? And that's the question of the $1 million, right? And so here's a strategy that job seekers can use to know that. I created a template cheat sheet on Excel sheet where I have all my contacts who have reached out to in the past 90 days, 60 days, 30 days, whatever. And I have the LinkedIn URL, the emails, and then I have a column. That column is called status. So I have there what was the last thing I did with that person, whether that be the second follow-up, the first time, and then I put the date, right? And so if I go back to the spreadsheet all the time and I see, well, I reached out to X person, they didn't reply. Let me go back and try to email them now. Let me go back and try to do something different to get their attention, right? I did that. And I remember my list grew for like 800 people that I actually connected, like live connection, warm conversations. And what I did to take it a step further was that on Thanksgiving Day, I sent it, listen to this, I sent a thank you note. So I recorded myself on a website. And I send it out to 800 people just saying, thank you for helping me in my career. So those 800 people got that email and that message at 8 a.m. in the morning on Thanksgiving Day. My DM inbox got completely blown out after I did that because I was genuine. And let me tell you, not everyone does that. You're not trying to seek anything from there. You're just being thankful to people. And you can do this on Thanksgiving, any holidays, but besides the holidays, you should do this very often. So that would be like my strategy behind that.
No, that's very interesting. So you sent an email to everyone saying, thank you for helping in my career?
So instead of being an email, I actually recorded myself on a video. And so I was looking on Google, like, is there any platform that allows me to send this video with an attached message to it to a massive amount of people instead of being me sending to 800 people? And I found a lot of these platforms, and I used the one that had the best reviews. And I remember I scheduled it like 3 days before Thanksgiving, and it was sent out to them on Thanksgiving Day at 8 a.m. in the morning. 800 people, they all got that email on their inbox at 8 a.m. in the morning on Thanksgiving Day.
That's amazing. This is something very, very unique. Manny, you wanted to add something?
So, Lindra, I just want to point something out and highlight something that Stephanie mentioned, right? And I want to let it breathe for a second. Follow up. Let that breathe. Follow up. I like to call it the art of following up. There really is, right, an art to doing it, knowing when to follow up. But there are a lot of people who don't do that, right? And I can't tell you how many times I've gone into my email and someone hasn't responded, and I will take my previous message and I will forward it to them I will press that forward button and say, just in case you missed my last message, just kind of like nudging them. And I'll tell you what, one of my now mentors at Workday, I did this method to her because I'd messaged her and I didn't hear anything back. So I forwarded that message and then she responded, thank you for the gentle nudge. Yes, let me connect you with these XY people within Workday. I was networking at the time, right? So follow up is so important because it could lead you to so many different opportunities that you didn't expect if you just only follow up. So just let that breathe. I'll pass it back to you, John.
You're absolutely right. And I'll give you a classic, this one. Last week, 3 weeks ago, I wrote to someone, group of 5 or 6 people in an organization, no response. And yesterday I was talking to someone like you, Manny, and they said, have you followed up? I said, no, I haven't. And I kept the phone down. And if you're watching, he actually, I told him to come and watch this episode as well. And said, have you followed up? I said, I haven't. And I kept the phone down and I followed up. I went off to sleep. I woke up in the morning with one of those 5 people responding. So you're right, Manny. Follow up works. And I'll go back to my own, the work I do. So I've been doing what is called analytics now, or machine learning now. I've been doing for a while. And what I've realized is, and we used to do campaigns, that a remail campaign, which is a follow-up campaign, has a higher response rate than a main campaign. So if you run the first mail, the remail has a higher follow-up. So it is a time and tested thing that you see. Okay, moving on. Angelo said, I've got many examples and very happy to share. So Angelo, if you've put that in the comment section. I know you're still watching then. Put that in the comment section and I'll take that up when it is there. Okay, next comment is from YouTube, and Vidya Veera Raghavan says, good stuff, Stephanie and Manny. And she is a very senior leader at Standard Chartered Bank. So thank you, Vidya. Thank you for watching. And it's early morning for her. I think it's 7:38 and she's getting the kids ready to school as well. So everything is working at the same time watching the episode. Thank you very much, Vidya. Okay, next question is from Angelo again. And he says, why do recruiters ask for resumes when LinkedIn has so much information? And why do employers get you to fill more forms with the same information when on LinkedIn? Manny?
Yeah. I know this all too well, and a lot of topics around this. LinkedIn versus resumes, right? And actually, so I used to be a technical recruiter, right? Mm-hmm. So I've looked at a ton of resumes, and I've looked at a ton of LinkedIn's. Right? And now the two of them are pretty much synonymous today. You can't have one without the other. Now, resumes itself are that piece of information that are very concise. What did you do at this company? What impact did you make? Right? And this, there may be conflicting views out there behind this, but this is my perspective and through my lens of this, is that your resume is that very concise piece of information that makes it easier for recruiters to kind of slice through all of the fluff and get to what can you do, right? And that's a big difference between the resume and the LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn profile is a digital portfolio of you, right? Where you can be more authentic and you can add in, like a fun banner if you'd like, or, a headline that captures someone's attention, and be more authentic in the about section and tell your story in there, right? And under the experience section, you could make it in paragraph form if you want to, instead of bullet points. You could say something, summarize it instead of having it the same exact thing as your resume. And I actually encourage my students that you're up to do this so that there's a difference between the two. So like you're not looking at the same exact thing, right? There's more content to you and more information to you than what's on your resume. So the reason why, recruiters may be, asking or continuing to ask you for your resumes because they just want to cut the crap, and get down to, are you really a good fit for this job or not? Right? And then when you submit that to the applicant tracking system, which is that evil software right? That kind of takes your resume and throws it in the trash. Digitally, of course, digitally. I joke about this all the time. But there's a step a lot of times in these applicant tracking systems where you upload your resume and all of a sudden you're brought to another page and it says, fill out that information again, please. And so I was confused for a minute about this. So I asked my friend who's a technical recruiter at Google. It's like, why does Google do this? Right? Why do these large companies have you fill that out again? And so a lot of the times what happens is people have different formatting on their resumes. And sometimes the applicant tracking system can't read it properly. And so as kind of like a safety net for the software, they have you enter it again manually, right? So that they are actually capturing the correct information in case it's not reading your resume properly. So just know that, there's a reason, there's a method to the madness for putting in that information. But unfortunately for those who are, putting a lot of effort into their resume so that it does get past the applicant tracking system, and then you have to do that again, it kind of does suck in that situation, because we've worked already so hard to, make it past the algorithms, and you have to do it again. But, there is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So, do the work, put in the effort, and you'll see the results. But that is through my lens, the difference between these two and why recruiters are asking for one or the other. So I'll pass it over to Stephanie.
Steph?
Yeah, great question. So I'll give you a different perspective from what I heard from different recruiters, and this might be true, might not be true, who knows? But one recruiter that I asked about this said, your resume is just what it is. It's a tool, right? It's a tool, like your cover letter, like your portfolio, like anything else. Now, the actual application itself, it's legally required for some companies because they are compliant to certain things, right? So, for example, filling out your application details have some legal and personal information there that is not on your resume. And so sometimes some companies are legally required to have you fill out an application that is way more than your resume. It's not just where you work, but there's a lot of other information that's outside of your resume and outside of your LinkedIn too, that they don't have access to, but that they need legally speaking, right? I'm not a legal advisor by any means. And so that might be the case. And what I would recommend is research that, right? Like maybe there is an article out there on Google or any website, like, what the companies require applicants to fill out a form, and there might be like actual, accurate information on that. But that's what I heard from different recruiters. That's what they say. And honestly, yes, it does take extra time to fill out everything. But as Manny said, sometimes on your LinkedIn, it's not really, and it shouldn't be the same as your resume. And there are a couple of other sections on your application that you can use for your advantage. For example, there is a section on many of the application forms that says additional documentation or additional links. You can use this to put any videos, blogs, article, PowerPoints, portfolios, whatever you have that applies to the role. And that's what I was talking about earlier, right? Having a project for the hiring manager. You can use this space to attach those things that might not be on your resume or might not be on your LinkedIn, right? And so if you look at it from a positive perspective, it does make sense to have an application, after you fill out your resume. So I hope this gives Angelo a different perspective as to why, but I'll definitely encourage you to kind of like maybe seek that out on like different sources from the media and online to see why that's happening. But yeah.
Okay. Can I add something more to that? Because those resumes is another thing, another big piece in the puzzle. And what I've realized or seen is that lots of recruiters do Control F to search and then find out those keywords. And instead of understanding the context behind, so for example, if I was to say, and I had gone through that problem when I was hiring, and I said to people, to the recruiters that you're not getting. So for example, and I'll give you a classic thing, SaaS, not saying software as a service, but SaaS, the company SaaS Institute. So if you want someone to do a business analytics kind of work using SaaS, And recruiters were getting me individuals who hadn't done business analytics, because SaaS is a huge software. You do data warehousing, you do data mining, you do 1,500 other things. But they were getting people who were doing data work using SaaS because they had mentioned SaaS on there. So is that also a thing that plays around when you're looking for people, and that's where recruiters sometimes discard people just because they haven't mentioned the keywords? Is that important?
I wouldn't say that recruiters really like disregard people because of keywords. I would say that they do look for certain keywords and minimum qualifications on resumes, and that's why like they do this search that you were talking about. But as I said, like I'm not necessarily a recruiter, so I wouldn't be able to tell you whether that's the case. But I would say from what I've heard from different recruiters is that a lot of people are putting keywords that they don't even know what the keywords are about, just to like get passed through the ATS. And at the end of the day, there is a human being behind the ATS, and ATS is just a software. The software is managed by someone, and that someone is the recruiter. So they are looking at your resume. So what I would say is, instead of focusing, sure, you should have the keywords on your resume, but focus more on making sure that you're tailoring your resume in terms of, your accomplishments and impact to the role, as opposed to just focusing on those keywords. Because sure, you'll show up based on those keywords, but then if there's no context on that keyword, then you show up for nothing because they can't really do anything about it. So it's just making sure you're really tailoring that impact and accomplishments to the role. But Manny, what do you think?
Yeah, so I want to steer this back to LinkedIn, because I know we're talking about resumes, and it's a whole nother animal, right, in conversation. And I think that a good reflection of the resume, is your LinkedIn, and you can do the same there, right? Adding keywords onto your LinkedIn, and that you can do it in so many places. You can do it in your banner, you can do it in your headline, you can do it in your about section. There's a skills section as well. You can do it in the experiences that you've had, volunteer experience. There's so many places that you can drop in like these keywords. We like to, as recruiters, we call them buzzwords, right? So, and there is, for like the software, when the recruiters are looking for talent, right, this kind of feeds into that as well, right? So it's very similar to kind of when you submit your resume. But I wanted to steer back in that direction, because your LinkedIn is just as important today as resumes were 20 years ago or so. 10 years, 20 years ago, LinkedIn is just as important today. So don't sleep on adding like keywords and things that are going to show recruiters and hiring managers that you're a good fit for the job.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. Let's go on to the next comment. Next comment is from Ajay Mohan. Good morning. So India is waking up, it seems. Let me take the next comment. It's from Katie Gasparoni, and she says, "Hi, Stephanie and Manny, two of the most giving people live on the same stage. This is awesomeness. Actually, it is. Thank you very much, guys."
Yeah, she's one of our favorite recruiters. Is she in Toronto or no, Texas? I forget.
Yeah, she's one of our friends, amazing recruiter, and we love her.
Good stuff. Anna Lungano Anderson says, "Hi, Manny and Stephanie."
Also another of our friends, amazing person.
Okay, and
helping people with project management.
I must pick this up. Dan is saying his hair still hasn't moved. It is amazing. Manny, what are you doing, mate? Okay. Katie says, "I always appreciate the gentle nudge. I think you're hearing this from a recruiter, which is great. Of course, you are. You're absolutely spot on."
You're referring to when we were talking about following up, right? We're following up, and I said, I gently nudge the person I followed up with. I think that's what she's referring to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Next comment is from Philippe Cofino, and he says, "Great job explaining why the application is important."
Another one of our friends too.
And he also said, "Manny and Stephanie, you two are amazing. Good stuff."
He's the VP of HR, I believe. Was he VP of HR? I know he's a VP at...
He's not VP in financial services, yeah.
Yeah, SAP.
Good stuff. He's in SAP? Oh, so I should know him. Anyways. Now a real question. Amit Agarwal says, is it a good idea to repost my content after my network has grown from when it was first posted, just so it reaches my new audience? What do you think, guys?
Great question. I would say very briefly, as long as you change it and tailor it to your new audience, that is still for a game, right? So if you have an amazing story that you share a year ago, 2 years ago, 9 months ago, and you have a new audience, you really want them to see it. If you change, if you tailor it to your new audience, you maybe add a couple of things for a game, right? It's your content at the end of the day, so there's nothing really stopping you from doing that. So yeah, I would say go for it. Manny, what do you think?
Yeah, and just a quick correction. I think I got mixed up. I was looking at your profile earlier today, Shailendra. Is that SAP? Felipe is at a different company. So my mistake. But I wanted to correct myself on that.
Okay.
So with this question here that Amit put up, sent to us, a good strategy is on like anniversaries, especially if you make like a posting. Let's say let's say I made a Father's Day posting recently. All right, so like next year when it's Father's Day, I might think about reposting that content and maybe repurposing it or something to my network. Or if I posted about like a birthday or celebrating something, right? You could repost that on the anniversary of when you did it last, and that might be a way to kind of recycle the information that you did, but just maybe repurpose it a little bit. So that was my take on that one.
Okay. Good stuff. There is another comment from Angelo, and says, aha, as a BI guy like Shailendra, we are treating resumes like a data analysis exercise then, rather than a human contact process. The biggest problem in recruitment, in guys, FYI, I've been a recruiter for years and a director of several recruitment companies, not happy. Okay, so that was Angelo's comment on that. You want to add anything to that, guys?
I'm going to pass.
Okay. Sorry?
I'll defer to you two if you have anything to add to this.
I think he pretty much covered it. I think yeah, like there has been a loss in the touch of the human side in different sides of recruitment, but I keep hope, right? I have my hopes up that we'll continue, adding that human touch to recruitment for sure.
There's actually so I will add to this. Actually, there's a lot of companies that have been popping up, like 1,000 hires, for example, for this very reason. Right, adding more of like the human element back into the interview process, right? And a fun little idea is, what about the teams? What about the teams that you're interviewing for? What about them? How can we learn more about them besides just the interview process and maybe the on-site that we get to visit the team and that one interaction, right? There's so much effort into learning about the candidate, right? The resume, the LinkedIn, but what do we know about the actual people that we're going to be working with? Right? That is kind of lost in this process, and I think it's important for candidates to kind of take some of that power back, right, in this process, and push to get to know these people a little bit better, because you're gonna be working with them for years, potentially working with these people for years, and so this is something that I'm actually very passionate about, with kind of humanizing the process more from what it is now, because a lot of it's just automated. A lot of the authenticity is lost in the process, and it's just a lot of the time a very stressful process.
Good stuff. Guys, I'm getting to the last comment, and before I get there, if you've got any question, put that in. This is your last opportunity for this show, and after this comment, if I don't have a question, I will wrap it up. So the comment comes from Angelo again. He says he's made a statement, and we're coming back to LinkedIn now, and he's saying, geographic and social issue is that Australian society, and he's particularly talking about Australia, is conservative compared to USA. Marketing and posting seen sometimes as a negative. It's a case of look at me, and Aussies don't like that. Just saying. What do you think? Is that same in US? How is that there in the USA? Is he right in what he's saying?
So I actually took the liberty when I saw this comment to do a little research, right? And it appears to be, part of it's just maybe a social norm or a way that people from Australia maybe view like content versus how people in the U.S. Are posting content regularly about like their successes and all of those things. And Stephanie mentioned something earlier, and it has to do with imposter syndrome, right? And I think that a lot of people will not post because of what others will think of them and think about what type of content that they're posting. Like, look at me, look at me. And I really want to encourage just approaching like if you're going to post, approaching from an abundance mindset, right? Like that you're giving to people, right? By sharing your experiences, you're giving to the people that are around you, that are listening in, that are reading your content, and you are supporting other people who may relate to you, who may have gone through a similar experience as you, right? And so I think that a lot of people may view, like when people are posting to LinkedIn, it's just like, oh, look at me, look at me. But in reality, we're actually vulnerable, and sharing our vulnerability with an audience that we have no idea who they are. We've never met them, but we are, not necessarily taking a chance, but yeah, being vulnerable in that sense and sharing like these personal experiences with people, hoping that it will help someone, change someone's life. And for me, from my perspective, that's why I post to LinkedIn. I post to LinkedIn to share my experiences and support people, uplift them. That's my thing. Right? Lift while you climb and hold the door open for people. And my content, surrounds that concept and that idea.
Stephanie, because you come from you're looking at two different cultures. How do you see this?
Yeah, you know what? I would start by saying before I even start with that piece, I feel like imposter syndrome and looking at what others would say about content, it's something that us content creators face every day, right? I would tell you that every day that I'm putting a post out there, I feel the same way. Like, how people react to this. I sometimes check my content 3 and 4 times before posting it, right? Like reading it off to see how it comes out, because I'm afraid that it will come off in another way. Sometimes at the beginning when I was starting off, I would have people checking my content beforehand, just kind of like tell me their perspective, right? Like, if this really like tailors the message that I really want to convey. And so it's just that feeling that you'd never get rid of. You just get a little bit more natural. But that feeling will always stay there. So I just wanted to say that, right? In terms of the way I view it, so in my country, right, we don't even use LinkedIn. So I should start by saying that. I asked people in my country, like, like, oh, do you use LinkedIn? Do you know what it is? They don't know what it is, right? They use Instagram and they use social media, but LinkedIn is not really a thing there. And so, like, I barely have a community from my country in my LinkedIn. And so this goes to tell you, right? Like, LinkedIn is not even a thing in my country. So if I would have let that fact that there's not even a thing there and now like started creating content, then I wouldn't have the audience that I have in the US, right? And so I look at it from different perspectives. Like, if I want to create an audience, I want to target my content to that audience. So if you're in the UK, for example, you want to create an audience in the US, you want to make sure that your content is a little bit targeted to your audience in the US. Even though you think that, they're a little bit more conservative or whatever's happening in your country. So, I mean, look at me as an example, right? Like, there's not even used in my country yet. I'm trying my best to tailor my message to people of the US, because that's the market that I'm targeting mainly. And then, kind of like just going from there. Like, as I said at the beginning, it's really also that feeling that will never go away. But I would just say, like, if you really want to do it, then you'll just go.
We can't. Thing is, you can't cater to everybody, right? I mean, there are going to be people who don't agree with your content all the time. Even when you're speaking live, like right now, there are going to be people who don't agree with what you're saying. And as thought leaders and as content creators, it's something that you have to be okay with, right? So in hopes that you'll impact someone in a positive way, right? So this is something that you have to accept. That's part of the process.
Good stuff. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your comments on this. And I think we're done with the questions and answers. There were quite a few, and I think it was exhausting. I didn't realize that we did have that many questions, but thank you very much. And all the people who were watching this, and I think it was very engaging. Thank you for your time, guys. But before you go, one thing you want the audience to remember, or one nugget or a diamond that you want to give away for people to remember and act, and as Manny said, act, that is important, on to get their dream job using LinkedIn. What would that be? And I will go ladies first. Stephanie.
Yes, I have one actionable step for everyone who is watching this right now. If you're watching this, I want you to look at the people who commented on this post. You saw that we were mentioning that at the beginning, that there were some recruiters that were friends of us. There were some VPs, some leaders. If you're a job seeker and you're watching this right now, I would recommend for you to reach out to the people that commented on this post, because you already have something in common. Both of you attended this 2-hour session. Both of you were able to connect something, and then you no longer have to look for that commonality and that common interest. You have it right here. So the first action that I want you to take is to reach out to anyone that is on this chat right now, and anyone who can help you get to that next role. And then you're going to use the fact that you both attended this live for that same reason. And then the second thing that I want you to do is to connect with me and Manny and see how we can help you advance your career on LinkedIn. At the end of the day, it's really about the actions that you take as a job seeker. So I want you to really own your story. I want you to show up with confidence, and I want you to go get that dream job using LinkedIn.
Thank you. Manny, your turn. Oh, you're on mute still. You're on mute still.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. So what I would tell all of you who are listening in, my final piece of advice, a tip, a suggestion for all of you, is that being a job seeker, and like if you're using LinkedIn, as a platform to get your dream job, one of the things that you're probably all familiar with is that there's a lot of rejection involved in being a job seeker and looking for an opportunity, right? So, and this is something that I tell my students all the time, right? That this is a part of being a job seeker, is not hearing back from people, being rejected from opportunities. And from one of my friends, and I'm sure Stephanie recognizes this phrase: turn your rejections into redirection, right? Or as one of my students told me today, right? It was every setback is a setup, right? And I actually like that as well. So every setback that you have, is a potential set up if you take action and you learn from your experiences. We don't take L's, right? We only take lessons in life. So that would be my final advice to everybody. We only take lessons.
Good stuff. So thank you, guys. It was a pleasure having you on the show, especially Stephanie. You're now hitting midnight. I'm so thankful to you. And Manny, you're hitting 9 p.m. So possibly getting ready for dinner. But thank you very much for your time. And it was a pleasure having both of you on the show. I think the audience did a good job waking up early, because there are lots of people who were early wakers. But it was a pleasure having you guys on the show. And it was great sharing your experiences and knowledge. And I think people loved it. And that's why we've seen that much of traffic always. I think we had, at any given point in time, more than 45 people watching across all the platforms, which is great. So thank you very much, and thank you for your time. And I will definitely want to come back on the show and take it again, because this is going to become a series, as it is so popular, as I see. So thank you very much once again.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, and bye now.
Thank you.
Thanks. So guys, that was Stephanie Nessy and Manny Dunas, all the way from US and at different time zones. And they've taken the pain to share their experiences, answer your questions, and also explain to you how you can get your next dream job using LinkedIn. So guys, if you've got a question, then keep that with you, because I'm coming back with this next week again with maybe the same leaders or different leaders who can share their experience, and we'll figure that out. But thank you very much for watching. But before you go, please do not forget to like this video and share it with your friends, family, network who can benefit from the advice that was given today for the last 2 hours. And don't forget to follow me if you're watching this on LinkedIn and Twitter. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe and press the bell icon. And if you're watching this on Facebook, then please take the link and share it with the groups, other Facebook groups, so more and more people can learn from these guys. I think that is very, very important. We need to spread the word and help people so that they can get their dream job using LinkedIn. So thank you very much, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye now. Take care.